Thank you, Rita. Coming up on tonight's South Today. A veteran who was exposed to nuclear tests in the 1950s appeals for compensation.
We were exposed to evil, and we were exposed to radiation. We were used as guinea pigs.
The Ministry of Defence says it recognises the contribution that nuclear test veterans have made. Also in tonight's programme. No Silicon Beach on the south coast. A Bournemouth tech firm moves to London, citing a lack of support. A hedge superhighway halfway through a planting project to link the New Forest and the South Downs. And the night sky, why the next month is prime time for stargazers as 6 planets align. Good evening, I'm Anjana Gadgil. Welcome to the programme. A former nuclear test veteran from Hampshire who witnessed the detonation of several atomic bombs says he was exposed to evil and is angry that decades on, service personnel still haven't been compensated. Robert James from Fordingbridge was an RAF firefighter stationed at Maralinga in Australia, where 7 tests took place. Unlike some other nuclear power states, the UK has so far paid no compensation at all. Kirstine O'Sullivan reports.
There's a huge live red ball rising up, getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and then the cloud, the smoke. It was horrendous. We didn't think much about the radiation at the time. We were rather ignorant. We were used as guinea pigs.
Robert was 19 when he was posted to Maralinga, oblivious of what was to come. Now 87, he believes he's one of the lucky ones, but says he's angry for those who haven't been. And he wants the Labour government to make good on promises he says they made before the election.
There's lads dying every day from the nuclear test veterans, and after having long illness. We were exposed to evil, and we were exposed to radiation, so that's pretty serious. And I think that warrants compensation. Don't go back on your word, Mr. Starmer.
Surviving nuclear test veterans were awarded medals, but many say it was too little too late. They want access to their medical records from that time, which some claim have gone missing. The Ministry of Defence denies this.
It's just been left. I think that's what makes me so angry, that it's just been left, and I will continue the fight so people actually recognise what my dad and his friends went through and what impact it is having on families going forward.
Jerry Bowler was stationed on Christmas Island and witnessed all the atomic bomb tests there. He died as a result of brain and lung cancer in 1990. His granddaughter Fiona is a historian working at the University of Southampton. She's just finished interviewing 40 veterans to preserve their stories for the British Library.
For many of them, the way that the government has consistently since the 1980s pushed back against any form of compensation, any form of recognition in many cases. The medal that was awarded to veterans a couple of years ago was, for many veterans, the first time that they felt that it had been recognised what they'd gone through. But for many veterans, that's just a medal. It doesn't do anything to counter the years of distrust that have built up between veterans and the government. And that's something that it's not going to go away.
Campaign lawyers say they're preparing to take their fight to the High Court. They've been calling for a special tribunal to be set up to avoid a protracted legal battle, but say they're disappointed they've not yet had a response. The Ministry of Defence says it recognises the huge contribution nuclear test veterans have made. It says the government's committed to working with veterans and says ministers are looking hard at this issue, including the question of records. Those who witnessed the UK's nuclear bomb tests say the experience has shaped their entire lives. and the impact will be felt for generations.
I think everything I do because of him. He never got to share his story with me, and so every time I sit down with a veteran, that's in the back of my mind. And I always think, if I could interview him, what would he say to me? But I'll never know because I never met him.
Kirstine O'Sullivan, BBC South Today, Fordingbridge.
A collision between a lorry and a bus closed a road in Oxfordshire this afternoon. The driver of this HGV had to be freed from the cab, suffering minor injuries. Meanwhile, employees on board the training bus were uninjured in the crash on Drayton Road in Abingdon. The acting Chief Constable for Thames Valley Police says they'll continue to serve, protect and respond to their communities as normal following the suspension of the Chief Constable. Jason Hogg was suspended from his job yesterday, pending an investigation into claims that, if proven, could amount to gross misconduct. The force's deputy, Ben Snuggs, will take the lead role temporarily. A Bournemouth firm that's had global success says it's moving its headquarters to London, blaming the local council for not supporting the technology sector as promised. The boss of OnBuy says he's frustrated that the vision of Bournemouth as a Silicon Valley-style base for tech firms hasn't materialised, while issues around drugs, homelessness and empty shops have also blighted the town's image. David Allard reports.
Shop online at onbuy.com.
OnBuy, one of the world's fastest growing online marketplaces, last year generating more than £21 million, and up till now based in Dorset. But OnBuy has now left its headquarters here in Bournemouth for a new HQ in London. It is keeping a smaller office here and no one will lose their job. But the boss says Bournemouth just isn't working for him. Kaz Payton doesn't pull any punches in this post on LinkedIn. He says there is no support for tech here in Bournemouth.
There was a plan put together with the council. We agreed we were going to work together on a Silicon Beach concept that meant we could attract talent, we could retain talent in the town. And my frustrations are born out of the fact that that became a one-sided battle for the company. It was always just words. There was never any action.
One organisation which supports local businesses had this to say.
The tech industry in the area is doing well, but of course we do need to listen to the voice of business. That's absolutely essential. And you know, my view would be I would like to have a conversation with OnBuy and really understand those issues, and then we can take them forward.
In his LinkedIn post about Bournemouth, Kaz also referred to high streets that are completely deserted and said major problems with homelessness and drug use are worse than the streets of London or Manchester.
The first time my children were exposed to the use of hard drugs was Bournemouth, NCP car park, Richmond Hill, crack cocaine, in the stairwell, trying to take my children down to the street. Never in Manchester.
So what do local people think of his comments on the state of the town?
Well, it's pretty true, actually. You know, I mean, the town's gone down something terrible.
I like it, and especially because of the beach. But when I'm coming back, I see like druggies, and I'm a bit afraid to go around.
Bournemouth's not as dangerous as Manchester. I went to university in Manchester. It's much worse there.
Homelessness is a problem, but it's widespread. It's not just in Bournemouth. If people had bring the business rates down a wee bit more, then they might fill the empty shops.
Kaz's comments have certainly sparked a debate, but he says he still loves Bournemouth and hopes speaking out will lead to positive change. David Allard, BBC South Today.
Well, earlier, David spoke to Councillor Rich Herrett from Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council and asked him first if Kaz Payton's comments about the town centre were fair.
I don't recognise that. We've just had our December footfall figures through, and through the kind of the events piece of Christmas, we're 12.5% up. We've got investment just opened in the form of the Ivy, right bang in the town centre. We've got JD gyms coming along, the Botanist are due, and I know that some of these units that have been quite publicly kind of lost very recently are already ready to kind of to reopen in 2025.
There is an awareness that homelessness is very visible, drug use is very visible too.
We don't ignore that, but they're not issues that are particularly unique to Bournemouth. Whilst we strive to make sure that these areas are addressed, they become harder and harder to do with less and less money.
Kaz Payson says BCP Council hasn't got the same buy-in to this Silicon Beach concept that he was talking to the council about several years ago.
Well, I think the market's changed around the tech companies over the last decade, and everything in that space is different post-pandemic. Our economic development team do work hard and are always open to networking potential and ideas from local businesses. But obviously, council funding's changed enormously as well, and protecting the most vulnerable people in our communities has to remain our priority.
Hundreds of military vehicles have been loaded up at a Hampshire port ahead of a major NATO exercise. 730 vehicles have been put onto 3 ferries at the Sea Mounting Centre in Marchwood. More than 2,400 UK personnel will take part in exercise Steadfast Dart 25 in Romania. It's the first deployment by NATO's Allied Reaction Force. Now, for all things political, Peter Henley is back on Sunday with Politics South.
How do you feel about electricity pylons? We are going to see a lot more going up, tens of thousands of them, in fact, to power things like artificial intelligence and to reach net zero. That's Politics South on Sunday morning from 10 on BBC One and on BBC iPlayer.
Thanks for watching BBC South. Still to come, Ben Ainsley tells us what's next after defeat in the America's Cup and...
Are you a stargazer? Because there's something out there. I'll reveal all very shortly.
A solution to the excessive traffic surrounding Stonehenge in Wiltshire has confounded all those who've tried to solve it for years. There was a planned tunnel which would have taken the A303 out of sight and improved overall traffic flow to the southwest. But the government stopped that plan within weeks of coming to power, with the £2 billion cost described as poor value for money. It was part of a wider plan for a huge improvement scheme on the current road, making it dual carriageway from the M3 down to the M5, but most of that was also scrapped. Now, a new study recommends upgrading the railway line through Salisbury to improve links to the southwest in place of any road widening. But it warns the railway line is sorely in need of investment, as our transport correspondent Paul Clifton reports.
This was the future once. A 2-mile road tunnel beneath Salisbury Plain carrying the A303 past Stonehenge. The idea is in the dustbin, labelled poor value for money, along with other upgrades to create a dual carriageway from the M3 at Basingstoke to the M5 at Taunton. A new study from respected transport consultants, commissioned by groups opposed to the tunnel, now wants this railway upgraded instead.
It deserves and warrants a proportion of that funding coming back into the region to help improve the economy, improve opportunity, and also make it a better place for people to live. This report outlines a whole approach, if you like, a whole menu of things that can be done to help reduce traffic levels on the road network while improving reliability on the rail.
The study finds the West of England line fails to meet the most basic needs of reliability and getting a seat. Peak services, it says, are usually overcrowded. 3/4 of the route is single track, with limited passing places, restricting how many trains can run.
There's just been one day in the last 4 months when trains have actually run on time. There's a target of 90% of trains to run on time, and that target's been hit once in 4 months. The average on-time performance is around 40 to 50% a day. So over half the trains run late on this line.
The report endorses South Western Railway plans to replace these 35-year-old diesels, nearly life expired, using existing electric trains adapted to take battery power for some of the journey, recharging on 50 miles of electric islands, new short sections of third rail providing power. It's called discontinuous electrification. It's not used anywhere similar. It would cost a fraction of the billions of pounds saved by not widening the road. Even if every possible improvement was done to the railway, traffic on the A303 here would continue to get worse. The railway can only ever be one part of the solution. There are giant retail distribution depots in Amesbury and Andover, Home Bargains, the Co-op and others. The population of the whole region is growing, all dependent on lorries and cars. Successive governments agreed that doing nothing about the A303 was not an option. And yet, that is exactly the option this government has chosen. No new investment in this national transport corridor is planned by road or rail. The traffic will get worse. Paul Clifton, BBC South Today on the A303.
Lewis Coombs is here, and you've been chatting to Sir Ben Ainslie, Lewis.
Yeah, we followed him during the America's Cup, didn't we? Now we've got some high-class sailing coming closer to home, Anjana. Sir Ben Ainslie says he's excited by the prospect of Portsmouth playing host to the world's best sail GP teams this summer. 12 foiling catamarans will battle it out on the waters of the Solent in July. While Ainslie also revealed he's in discussions to find funding for another crack at the America's Cup, hoping to build on the British team's progress made in Barcelona last year. To the list of Dubai, Sydney and New York, add Portsmouth, hosts of this year's Sail GP.
For Portsmouth to be on the circuit, I think it's great for the city, obviously such a strong maritime heritage, and to be right up there with some of these other amazing cities in Sail GP, it's exactly where Portsmouth should be.
The shores of Southsea will welcome crowds in their thousands to witness the high-speed, high-drama racing in July.
We've seen when we've had similar events in previous years, we've had a really big turnout. And like I said, Sail GP is really on a massive upward trajectory in terms of its presence in not only in the sport of sailing, but sport in general. And so we expect some great things this summer. Yeah, hi, I'm Ben. How are you? Yeah. Good to meet you.
Today, Sir Ben visited the King's Academy Northern Parade School in Portsmouth to inspire engineers and sailors of the future and spread the message of sustainability.
I was blown away actually by what they've done there. They showed us a great little video of the Eco Warriors and the sustainability programme that they've got there and the great works that they've done at the school and really transformed it in the last couple of years. So good to see, and just a great bunch of kids.
Portsmouth is where Sir Ben's British bid to lift the long-coveted America's Cup was launched 10 years ago. And after losing to reigning champions New Zealand in October, the hope is to go again. But that comes at an expensive price. Previously backed by billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe. We got funding for another tilt?
Yeah, we want to keep going. We obviously got very close this last time. Funding, that's an interesting question. Can't really say at the moment in terms of where we're at with that, but needless to say, it's the intention of the team to keep going and to ultimately get that job done and win the Cup.
Have you had those conversations with Sir Jim about going again, INEOS backing the team?
Yeah, we've had conversations, but at the moment I'm not sure with INEOS what their position is and whether they want to continue or not.
Race 7 and the match is definitely a go.
Each time we do go through this Cup process, we get one step closer. And it's about learning and developing, and we've seen, particularly with Emirates Team New Zealand, 30 plus years of history in the America's Cup. We're now a third generation team, and we've seen that growth and that performance improve. So the trick is to get the continuity and keep going and keep developing those systems, those work processes, and the experience to have an organisation that can go all the way, and I truly believe that we have that.
On to football now. Southampton boss Ivan Juric has called for his team to be more evil following a late collapse against Manchester United. It was better news for Brighton, though, who gained their first victory in 9 league games. Goals from Karu Matoma. There's more Premier League action to come this weekend. Bournemouth fans will need to leave early for their 12:30 kick-off away at Newcastle. Brighton and Southampton are on the road against Manchester United and Nottingham Forest, respectively, on Sunday. In the Championship, Oxford could make it 6 league games unbeaten at home to Blackburn, while Paddy Lane is a major doubt for Pompey's home game against Middlesbrough. In League One, Reading in 6th welcomes 7th place Stockport, looking to cement their position in the playoff spots, while Swindon faced Barrow at the County Ground, hoping to further move away from the League 2 relegation zone. And defending British Arena Cross champion Jack Brunel from Windsor is targeting a win at Wembley Arena this weekend to get himself back in this year's title race. The Stark Future rider is currently in 5th. That was after a disappointing opening round 2 weeks ago, 9 points behind leader Dean Wilson. Jack won his first title, of course, last year after a decade of trying. Yeah, that's a great event. Early start for the Bournemouth fans, isn't it?
12:30 kickoff in Newcastle. That's not fair.
There's actually a coach that leaves Weymouth at midnight. So if anyone's on that coach, I'd love to hear from you, because that is commitment.
Emma Raducanu starts her match at 12:30.
Well, something to do, isn't it, on the journey up there?
It's a long way.
Yeah.
Lewis, thank you. Now, a 3-year project to plant a hedgerow connecting the national parks of the New Forest and South Downs has reached the halfway point.
When complete, the Hampshire hedge will stretch from Copythorne in the New Forest to Compton near Winchester.
It will provide a green corridor to boost biodiversity and capture carbon. Bryony Leyland reports.
Hedgerows have long been part of the patchwork of the English countryside, but time hasn't been kind to them. Since the Second World War, 50% have been lost, partly due to changing farming practices. The Hampshire Hedge Project is designed to reverse that decline. 12 miles of hedgerow will link the New Forest National Park to the edge of the South Downs National Park near Winchester. Today they reached the halfway point at Hillier Gardens near Romsey.
We need more hedgerows in the countryside to create connectivity between habitats that have become fragmented. This is really important for our native wildlife, but as well as that, hedgerows are really important for farmers, and they reduce soil erosion and flooding, and they also store carbon, so hedgerows can help all of us. They're also an incredibly important part of our cultural heritage, so I think that's not something to be forgotten about.
Landowners and volunteers like Teresa planting at Hillier Gardens today have come together to make the project happen.
I wanted to be part of it because my father worked here in the 1960s. He passed away 12 years ago, and I just thought it's something that's going to grow, so we'll have a bond here together. So I just thought it was wonderful.
In some cases, existing hedgerow is being renewed. In other places, teams like these pupils from Oliver's Battery School in Winchester are making completely new hedges.
The reason we have to plant more hedges is for animals, habitats.
Hedgerows are really good because they also provide food for birds, animals and lots of other small creatures.
I highly enjoyed this because it's helping the animals and it's planting hedges for the future years.
It's really important for us that the children spend as much time outdoors as they can. They've loved thinking about hedgerows, why hedgerows are important, and I know that they've already started to look at their trees, their little bit of the hedgerow, and they'll wonder how that's growing over the days and the years to come.
At the halfway mark, the 3-year project is on track for completion by 2026. The trees planted here are just a fraction of the 37,500 planted so far. It will take time for this to turn into a hedgerow, about 10 years for the plants to grow and mature. More volunteers are being encouraged to join the project and play their part in shaping the landscape around them. Bryony Leyland, BBC South Today, Romsey.
Now, this is no longer a TV station. We've become a space station. We've created our very own planetarium to highlight a special moment you won't want to miss.
Yes, well, space may be a little beyond Alexis's normal remit on the weather. You've got some exciting news.
Yes, this month and next, we're in for a real treat in the night sky. 6 planets will all be visible at once. Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune will all be seen in what's called the Parade of Planets.
So when can we see it?
Well, if you step outside around 7 p.m. for the next month, Mars will be in the east, Jupiter in the southeast, Venus and Saturn in the southwest, and Uranus and Neptune can be seen through a telescope where the sky is quite dark. We spoke to the BBC Sky at Night presenter Chris Lintott about the planetary alignment.
Most of these planets will be around for the next month or so. Mercury also gets involved at the end of February, but a good time to spot them is tomorrow, Saturday, because Venus will be close to Saturn, making it easier to find Saturn. If you go outside just after the sunset, the first things that you will see appearing in the night sky will be these planets. You get Venus first, then you spot Jupiter nearly overhead, then Mars with its distinct red colour. You can spot Saturn, and then the rest of the night sky comes out. But it's really a chance to go outside, look up and enjoy the sky for just a few minutes.
So back on planet Earth, where it has been quite cloudy, many of us may not see the parade of planets over the next few nights. I'll talk about that in the forecast, but let's take a look at your weather pictures. Blue sky, the North Hinksey in Oxfordshire, photographed by one of our weather watchers, and grey skies in Wareham. And these grey skies are what we're going to see really for the next few nights. So many of us seeing a lot of cloud overnight tonight. It's low cloud, but where it does start to break up, we could see some mist and fog patches form in the usual prone spots. So through the day tomorrow, large areas of cloud can be expected. expected, but we're hopeful for some breaks in the cloud cover to allow for some sunny spells. Overnight tonight, that low cloud will start to develop. Where we do have the clear skies, that could trigger some mist and fog patches to form during the early hours of the morning. So low cloud, mist and fog is a possibility. Temperatures for northern parts of the region dropping towards freezing, so maybe a touch of frost out in the countryside there. But elsewhere, we're looking at frost-free conditions, but chilly temperatures. Tomorrow is going to be quite a chilly day compared to today. There will be large areas of low cloud, perhaps some brightness breaking through at times in some places, but for many areas we'll hold on to that low cloud throughout the day. And temperatures as a result will really struggle to rise. We've got some cooler air coming in from the near continent. Highs tomorrow of just 4 to 7 Celsius with the fairly light winds. So for the coastal forecast tomorrow, on the inshore waters, the winds are east or southeast, veering southeast, becoming variable later, 2 to 4. The sea state is slight or moderate. The weather is fair and the visibility is moderate or good. Now, through the course of tomorrow night, very like tonight, that cloud will thicken once again. Mist and fog patches are a possibility during the early hours of Sunday morning, as well as patchy frost, with temperatures in some places falling towards freezing or just below, particularly out in the countryside. So it's a chilly day once again on Sunday. A lot of cloud is expected. That low cloud will linger throughout much of the day. And later in the day, this cold front will start moving its way eastwards, producing some patchy rain towards the evening and overnight into Sunday morning. Monday morning, in fact. So overnight Sunday into Monday morning, patchy rain is a possibility. And we haven't really seen any significant rainfall since the 5th of January. It's been quite dry. But into next week, relatively quiet at first, but turning unsettled from midweek onwards, later on Wednesday into Thursday, the possibility of some really quite wet conditions with strengthening winds at times, and temperatures recover next week. But over the weekend, it's going to be pretty chilly. And Jana.
So Lewis and I were about to dash out to see the planets, but it's just too cloudy.
It might see a few clear spells.
OK.
Maybe. Fingers crossed.
Give it a go. Tom's here at 10:30, but that's it from us. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
So you might get lucky?
Maybe.